Hi there. My name is Justine, and today I'm here with
Chase.
and we're going to be talking about Bioshock and how this prolific game has really enraptured us both.
Great. Yeah, no. So Bioshock, to give a quick introduction as to what Bioshock is for the uninitiated, it is a first-person shooter survival horror video game released in August of 2007 by Ken Levine, and it is set in an underwater city in the 1940s.
So, let's set the scene. We are a guy on a plane
Whose name is Jack.
whose name is Jack, but we don't find that out until
Later.
much later. Uh, we're on a plane, and all of a sudden, our plane crashes
Oh my god.
in the middle of the ocean.
Holy crap.
There's
We're all
fire
gonna die.
everywhere, and we are swimming through this ocean. Really, we aren't given much of a choice in which direction to go. The fire is almost leading us directly to this lighthouse, this monolithic building, where once we walk inside, we're greeted with a giant metallic statue of a man's face looking down on us. And below that is a banner that reads,
No kings, no gods, only men.
and that is one of the foundational basis of our antagonist Andrew Ryan's set of beliefs. So
those set of beliefs, which we will discuss in a little bit, were inspired by the actual author Ayn Rand's philosophy of objectivism. So we'll unpack that in a second.
Yeah, I'd like to get into maybe talking about the first introductory speech we hear from Andrew Ryan as we're navigating descending into rapture through this
bathysphere, basically a little submarine.
All right, so we pull the lever, start descending on this railed underwater tram as we hear,
here to ask you a question. Is a man not entitled to the sweat of his brow? No, says the man in Washington, it belongs to the poor. No, says the man in the Vatican, it belongs to God. No, says the man in Moscow, it belongs to everyone. I rejected those answers. Instead, I chose something different. I chose the impossible. I chose rapture.
All right, and then the veiled tram opens its window,
front window, I guess,
and we see this magnificent underwater city with all of these bright lights and
Art Deco architecture,
right, and different advertising,
like an Atlantis, essentially.
Definitely, with the giant luminescent sign saying "Welcome to Rapture." And I think that it really says that Andrew Ryan was trying to have this place ascend manliness into godliness, for lack of a better word.
I think, yeah. Again, like if we were running with the kernel of like, okay, Andrew Ryan is a fictitious mirror of the actual author Ayn Rand and her philosophy of objectivism. She had a similar belief set insofar as like Andrew Ryan said, right? Like, isn't a man entitled to the sweat of his brow? As far as Ayn Rand and Andrew Ryan are concerned, in Rapture, you are what you are capable of producing. You are worth what you can make. You are entitled to the sweat of your brow. There is no supervision. There is no there's no like underlying infrastructure set up, no systems in place to kind of regulate people in like what we would understand as like, I guess, like a structured society.
Yeah, at this point, when we're brought into this society, it's already like at the point of collapse,
It had
and
already
it's
survived a civil war.
total anarchy.
Yeah.
But so our character stumbles upon this world where its inhabitants have genetically spliced themselves with this invention of plasmids, which is basically a syringe of fluids that they inject themselves with to gain superpowers of different sorts.
In universe, it's explained as a substance that rewrites genetic code. So, interestingly, and this is kind of like why I really a lot of what I respect about Bioshock is how it sells this like anachronism of, again, like it's in the 1940s, and yet we have like designer gene editing drugs.
Yeah.
Like we have like nowadays, like we have like CRISPR. You know, like.
Well, I've never heard. What's that?
You never heard of CRISPR?
No.
Okay, so this is cool because CRISPR is a genome editing technology. It was invented actually over at UC Berkeley.
Oh, interesting.
And I think just recently there was a boy that had sickle cell anemia or sickle cell. You know, like the where your blood cells like it clogs up and it hurts. CRISPR was used to genetically alter the way his bone marrow in like the way in which his bone marrow like produced blood cells or like proliferated blood cells, and it worked. He is cured of a disease that was previously like untreatable.
Oh wow.
So right, and CRISPR is a technology that basically uses stem cells, like in the real world, like stem cells, which is in all of us. All of us possess some quantity of stem cells. And CRISPR allows researchers to effectively use stem cells to, as far as I understand, use stem cells to write and rewrite genetic code. And that allows novel, albeit experimental, ways for scientists and medical professionals to address really unique, kind of previously unchallengeable
diagnoses.
Problems, you know. So we can see that, like in Bioshock, in the world of Bioshock, this is a very cynical view of that potential future. So these gene editing drugs, slowly, the more you use them, you know, like again, like you know, like you said, it gives you superpowers, like it, you know, boosts your brain capacity, or it lets you shoot fire out of your hands.
Telekinesis, fireballs,
and like,
lightning, all that.
Great stuff. Until you start using it more and more, and it slowly starts mutating your body and your mind. You lose your mind, and you start your physical shell starts warping.
So all of these inhabitants in Enraptured started taking the plasmids and basically got addicted to this, and in turn lost themselves to insanity, basically. So that is, for the majority of the game, who we're fighting is these genetically modified splicers. Yeah,
basically, just like, I mean, for lack of a better term, like drug addicts. In a weird way, like, you know, in a way that they're like addicted to something that makes them, you know, go crazy, which, I mean, you know, that's something that people deal with all the time.
But what do you think Bioshock as a whole is really trying to say, and why is this piece of of media important and a great philosophy, a groundwork to almost like act as a foreboding or a warning message of a dystopian future.
Right. So I think Bioshock, as a video game, as a piece of media in which like we as players are directly interacting with a narrative, I really think that amongst other things, it is a very critical. It is a very it's a very in some ways very unsubtle, but in a lot of ways very subtle critique of Ayn Rand's philosophy of objectivism. You know, kind of this idea of like, okay, if all of the like physical limiters of our world were stripped off, like this hypothetical world where you could build a city underwater, and all by your own and run it with the real world philosophies of objectivism, you know, like it will implode. You know, like it's and I think like I think that's interesting to think on, considering that like Ayn Rand's like now after decades, like we've seen that Ayn Rand's philosophy is still studied, not really hasn't really like propagated in any kind of like I don't want to say like popular way or you know not a very influential way. Like let's say that we've definitely moved on from objectivism.
We've thought
in the
about it.
day.
We've thought about it. Moved
Really
past
apply.
it.
Yeah, and I mean Bioshock is very upfront insofar as saying like this is a desperate situation. Again, like this is a survival horror game. Like we as players find ourselves trapped in pretty desperate scenarios, all created by the guy whose city this is that we're trapped in. You know, Andrew Ryan, who in effect kind of led to all of this stuff happening, all of this, you know.
And ultimately, at the end of the game, we, as Jack in a Big Daddy suit. Oh, we didn't even really touch on the Big Daddies,
right?
The little sisters.
Yeah, that is another kind of one of the horror aspects of Bioshock, which I think they do really well because, like, again, you don't really understand what a Big Daddy is until the like last quarter of the game. So amongst the various like splicer enemies that you interact with in the game, there are other creatures that you can find in Rapture and around the bottom of the ocean, one of which is this giant creature that's basically plugged into, like, lives within a diving suit. And they have this, they're really iconic. They're on the front of the box. They have this giant drill on one of their hands. And effectively, and these things are called Big Daddies. They are effectively, I guess you could consider them like handy, like laborers. You know, like they do. I think in the second game it kind of expands more on like what the roles of the Big Daddies were aside from protecting little sisters.
Yeah.
You know, in Rapture, but the primary focus of
I think that, if I'm wrong, I think they were like a peacekeeper, sort of.
They were essentially protecting the little sisters.
Yeah.
And the little sisters themselves, their job was to extract Adam from dead bodies.
Right.
To repurpose into new plasmids.
So, the whole struggle with Andrew Ryan and his philosophy is and his city is that you know, he has a place for industry, for science and art, but he doesn't believe that a god should reign over man, and so
or even that other men should rule over men.
Right.
Which is ironic considering that he has all of these specific rules about like, oh, you can't do this, can't do that. One of the little details that I really like about Bioshock is that Andrew Ryan outlaws the Bible. You find later in the middle of the game that people, like, there are like a group of smugglers in Enrapture that are smuggling in not food, not medicine, not drugs, Bibles.
Yeah.
Really interesting to think about.
And it's which is kind of like, you know, the opposite of what we think of traditionally as like an ascension. You know, he's devoiding them of that
religiosity.
Yeah.
That's actually a really, I never even thought about that, but that is a really nuanced point. Yeah, I mean, like, again, another way that this interactive piece of media gets you to think about you as the player, like you playing as Jack, just kind of trying to survive this really gritty scenario, this like really daring scenario, like these, you know, like scary scenario after scenario. It almost makes you forget about the really strange and kind of thought-provoking things that are happening in the world that you're trying to escape. You know, that the city that you're trying to escape. Right. Again, like Andrew Ryan and as well as Ayn Rand had almost these like like a spiritual connection to their philosophies, and like they were almost inspired by almost this like apotheosis. Like, I'm striving for a new faith, a new like ascension to a new spirituality, and in doing so, blotting out more conventional ideas of religiosity.
So at the end of the game, or I guess one of the climactic moments when we take down Andrew Ryan, how would you say, like, you know, he kind of accepts his death because he's admitting the defeat of his own philosophy?
Yes. Well, that's actually interesting, because I think, near the end of, this is like the 95% mark of Bioshock, like you're in basically the last act, it's revealed that Jack is
a sleeper agent.
And the character, we didn't mention Atlas, but Atlas is one of the few friends, or quote-unquote friends, that you find in Rapture.
Yeah, he's a guy on the radio. We find this radio. He's guiding us through the game, through the levels, and it's almost as if he's our only solace. He's our only, like, sign of hope.
Like, human,
that we meet throughout the game.
Fuck that. It's actually revealed that
right.
He is a different person. He is actually Frank Fontaine. Atlas was an alias. Frank Fontaine is the biggest and most primary business competitor to Andrew Ryan. And all of what Atlas has been telling you to do this whole time, you, the player, and you, Jack, has been a coded trigger message, which is, would you kindly? You know, would you kindly do this? Would you kindly do that? Which is revealed before you kill Andrew Ryan to be your sleeper phrase.
Right.
You know, to get you to do stuff, you, Jack. But you as the player, you've been just playing the game. But yes, Andrew Ryan's death happens after that reveal, and it is a scene. It's a powerful scene because, like you said, it is a way of Andrew Ryan, this guy that's been, like, we've been led up to hate this whole point. This whole game, we've been led to think that, like, stopping this guy is the key to escaping. And the moment he meets us, he gives you, Jack, and you, the player, like the person that you're seeing the world through the eyes of, he gives you the weapon that ends up killing him, a golf club. And Andrew Ryan leaves you, the player, and Jack with the message that a man chooses and a slave obeys. Which, after all of this fighting, all of the examples that we've seen of, like, Andrew Ryan making pretty questionable decisions and leading a large amount of people, like a city full of people, down a pretty dark path, you know, ultimately, like, it led to a civil war and, like, many, many deaths and a lot of pain. He almost leaves this, like, haunting last message to Jack, but also to the player
Right.
that consider the message is almost as if it's like consider what amount of agency you really have.
The illusion of choice.
The illusion of choice. Yeah, consider how much choice you're actually making and how much proportion of that choice is actually illusory.
And we get that one of the real choices we are able to make in the game is with saving or harvesting the little sisters. And as we talked about, the little sisters are these little girls that were, I guess, also genetically modified into almost like
bloodhounds almost. They like seek out the substance that then can be recycled into more plasmids.
Yeah. So they're one for whatever reason, it seems like they're one of the only people who can harvest the atom.
Jack.
The little sisters.
Right. Oh yeah. Right. Jack can
save or harvest
the little
sisters. Yeah.
But the little sisters are genetically engineered in such a way as to be, pretty much like the only creatures that we've seen in the Bioshock series that can like actually recognize Adam, which is the kind of fundamental chemical
basically
substance.
at this point the currency of
right. Yeah, exactly. Aside from money, like, because we find a lot of money and we use a lot of money in the game,
right,
and again, like, because we like Andrew Ryan has constructed Rapture to be as if it were like an objectivist utopia. There's no freebies. You have to buy everything. Because what is a man but what is a man worth but the sweat off his brow? Exactly. So right. So they're almost become that in the plasmids and in this like race to almost perfect the human form and unlock rewrite the human code into something more. Yeah, Adam as like a substance becomes almost a secondary currency for your humanity. Like, the more Adam, like, everybody in Rapture wants Adam because the more Adam you have, the more plasmids you have.
Oh my gosh, I just made an incredible connection. Adam in today's society is like clout.
I mean,
clout is like currency. Set.
Gotta get on that grind set.
Okay.
Gotta get on that grind set, man. Gotta get on that clout set. I guess it's clout in the sense that it's like,
well, they're becoming more powerful until the point where
they go crazy.
And and then all that is like stripped from them.
I know, it's crazy, right?
Which can be like, I guess paralleled with like cancel culture. Let's stray away from that.
Yeah,
but...
I think we're losing the script a little bit. But Bioshock gives you a lot to think about in terms of like the human impact of objectivism, the human impact of science run amok, the human impact of capital run amok. I think, like a lot of like again, Adam being a currency, something that there's a whole job and a whole creature dedicated to harvesting and recycling.
Yeah.
And turning into another product in Rapture, almost. And the fact that you get Adam from corpses. You can't extract Adam from living beings. You either have to get Adam from, the slugs.
Right.
You either get the slugs that actually like have these stem cells that you can harvest and turn into plasmids like raw, or you get them from people that took plasmids and died, and it's in their blood. It's almost as if in Rapture the human body is worth less than the atom that it carries. Your genes, the genetic material that you're carrying within you, is worth more than your body.
Definitely.
Which is really kind of dystopian to think about.
So, our main takeaway here, our thesis, if you will.
Objectivism sucks when you think about it.
Yeah.
When you apply it to an actual society and actual human beings that like have lives and like have desires and wants and vices, turns out that when you just say like fuck it, you can have whatever you want and nobody's gonna care as long as you have the money and the means to get it. Turns out that ends up making a pretty shitty society.
But a really great horror game.
But an awesome horror game.
Yeah.
I loved I've played it so many times. I love that game.
Bioshock is one of my favorite games. It's something that, you know, I've been meaning to finish a full playthrough, but I just get too play with the lights on, then maybe I'll get through it. All right, well, thanks for sitting down with me here today, Chase, and this was fun.
This was good, yeah. I think we definitely, I was enlightened about Bioshock. I came out of this more educated about a game that I thought I already knew a lot about, which is cool.
Great, well, likewise. I'm glad we were able to talk and have that effect on each other. So
yeah,
let's high five.
Yeah.
All right.
We caught it on audio. That means it happened.
Over and out.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.